Hello, I'm not primarily an historian, nor is this a party political broadcast. But I do have to say I was somewhat relieved to watch the BBC News tonight at 6. I watched it after it had occurred through the iPlayer because I can't receive live footage since the transmitter went down in the Newcastle area. Maybe that's not true. I keep associating the BBC transmitter with the Angel of the North. I know it's probably not a transmitter hidden in there, but that is a theory I had once. But yes, I was somewhat relieved to note that Vladimir Putin in Red Square seemed self-assured and dignified. And I was relieved that he wasn't assassinated. I was relieved about that. And I hope that some talks may be able to go ahead between some of the people in power in the world. I do feel in a way as though that might be essential, given that also in some ways our planet seems to have shrunk somewhat. Yes, that may be illusory, but certainly I did feel when all the motorways encouraged all the villagers to give up their land so that motorways could allow cars to pass through quicker in this country. In some ways it made it more convenient for a lot of people, but in some ways a great deal was lost. And I don't know why at all they're talking about making a tunnel underneath Stonehenge, and it does worry me. But yes, Vladimir Putin, according to the news, the BBC News tonight, had talked about the way that Russia had helped bring to an end the war against the Nazis in the Second World War. And I do value that contribution. As I say, I'm not primarily an historian, but I am thinking myself, being a person who's been sustained in a somewhat dignified manner. I mean, there's been times when all my liberty has been taken away, when I've been sort of, in a way, not a free person as would be a Roman citizen for no fault of my own. I wasn't put into slavery, but I was made to be more confused in my view. But anyway, this isn't about me today. This is mostly about after the Second World War, partly through Russia's influence, I believe, the benefit system and the NHS came into working order for us and established order for us. And it did establish order for us and reaffirm what I believe had somewhat, well, maybe somewhat threatened even by the work ethic, and that is the third hand. It's my belief that actually the benefit system and the NHS is the third hand, and it's I'm not sure that if people were relying merely on charity or the generosity of other people without state intervention, there would be such a good example of a civilized nation. Now, I have to say that that is of concern, because in Russia, if everybody is being so pressed financially, I worry. Well, there are some who I know in literature, in one particular German literature book I read, not in the original German, by the way, that some people thought that Nazism in its worst form and the disregard of disabled people and the angst against Jews was because stemmed from poverty within the German nation. And a lot of them, I was told, blamed England because of the First World War at that time, and also thought that if there had been a Roman Empire, and well, I mean, there was all that Maximilian, the Habsburgs and Maximilian and all that lot. And right, okay, I'm going to stop there and go to another concern of mine. If people want to avoid imminent danger, they might end up postponing danger. If they're successful, but only postponing it. I know that a friend of mine, I hope he doesn't get cross with me. I don't know whether he's still a friend of mine. I don't know whether he had some problem with me, or may have felt sometimes, maybe quite a few people do, antagonistic towards me at times. But I found that in some countries, what one would have expected to be council land is actually now has been sold to private ownership, and that possibly all the private houses on that land and all the council houses, if there are any on that land, may belong to someone other than a local authority. And that people also might be buying mining land underneath that land. Now, councils pressed with difficulties might have allowed that to happen. I don't know whether it's true in this country that they have. I know that I've been given concerned reason, although the Museum Gardens is great in York, although, seeing the ruins of St Mary's Abbey is free. You don't have to pay an NHS or English heritage fee to enter into the Museum Gardens and to sit in the grounds of the old St Mary's Abbey and admire the view and so on. You don't need to pay for that once you're in York, which is so lovely. But I'm worried that the land may not actually belong to the council anymore, because once I went there and there had been the whole gardens hired out for a private party, it said on the notice. So I know that the old communist regime didn't necessarily believe in private property, and people would hopefully want people's lives to be at least as important as their property to some extent. But it is rather concerning. I mean, just flitting about, I know that my mind is flitting from one subject to another, but it is a related argument. I read in the newspaper that the amount of homelessness in Northern Ireland at the moment is dreadful, really hitting an all-time high. And the last I'd heard about that, there were ghost properties, seemingly called, in Northern Ireland, places that had been built that no one could afford to buy. Then maybe a lot of people from other countries bought them all up as holiday homes or whatever. I don't know whether, I know that Sinn Féin's just taken over, well, no, not taken over, and I do remember the IRA days and how awful that was. Not personally for myself, in a vivid and awful and nasty way, though it did permeate throughout the whole of our British Isles, that we were worried about the situation and had sympathy for those living there on both sides. But whether people are wanting Ireland, if they are wanting Ireland to be a separate island, whether it's Irish people wanting that anymore, I don't know. Or whether all the Irish people are homeless, don't know.